by respective publisher. For more information, just visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Now, welcome to you, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We now present a reading of articles and features from the USA Today for Tuesday, March the 3rd of 2026. And your readers today are Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
And I'm going to start you right out on our front page. My column has 3 U.S. jets crash as the attacks press on. No endless war, Hegseth vows. This is not Iraq. 3 American fighter aircraft crashed in Kuwait on March 2nd, with crews surviving unscathed and in stable condition, the Middle Eastern country's defense ministry and Pentagon said, as the congressional debate over President Donald Trump's military campaign in Iran ramps up. The U.S. and Israel began striking at Iran on February 28th in a campaign that killed their supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, along with dozens of top leaders, and hit more than 1,000 targets inside that country, Trump said. Iran has retaliated with strikes against the U.S. military bases, Israel, and other nations in the Middle East. Now, Trump said in launching this operation that he sought to eliminate imminent threats, that's in quotes, imminent threats, from Iran, describing a regime engaged in mass terror and declaring that he was acting to prevent the country from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Now, he called the Iranian people to overthrow the Tehran's ruling regime. The airstrikes also have targeted Iran's ballistic missile program and Navy. Trump has said that could continue for weeks. The number of U.S. service members killed in action, it rose to 4 on March the 2nd, the Pentagon said in a statement. The 4th service member, who was not identified, he died after being seriously wounded in Iran's initial counterattacks. Trump approves the strike February 27th. Trump gave the final approval for the initial strikes at 3:38 p.m. Eastern Time on February 27th, said Air Force General Dan Kane, who's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. No aborts, Trump's message said. Good luck. Kane said the attack began at 1:15 a.m. February 28th when the skies surged to life with 100 aircraft, Tomahawk missiles, and electronic warfare. The military had 1,000 targets in the first 24 hours, he said at a news conference on March the 2nd. The role of Congress. The U.S. launched the strikes without Congress's approval because Trump said the attacks are military actions and not an act of war. But Democrats are questioning the notion that Iran posed an imminent threat and are seeking a congressional vote on the operation amid concerns it could spiral into an extended conflict that destabilizes the region and then claims more U.S. lives. Under the U.S. Constitution, only Congress has the power to declare war. But the president can authorize military actions through his or her power as commander-in-chief, according to the War Powers Act of 1973. The front widens to Lebanon. Lebanon was pulled into the widening conflict on March 2nd after Hezbollah and the Lebanese Shia militant group, backed up by Iran, fired missiles at the Israeli northern port city of Haifa. The Israel Defense Forces said in a statement that it responded by striking sites in Hezbollah's stronghold in the southern suburbs of Beirut, as well as dozens of villages along Israel's border with Lebanon. Now, Lebanon's health ministry said in a statement published on its website that the strikes on Beirut and southern Lebanon have killed at least 31 people and injured 149. Hezbollah was seriously weakened in its war with Israel, connected to those October 7th attacks.
Springtime dangers can sneak up on you. Weather phenomena are often underestimated. Tornadoes, thunderstorms, floods, wind, hail, wildfires, crazy temperature changes. Hello, spring. Sure, the warmer weather sounds nice, but with the rising temperatures come a wide range of dangers, many of them surprising or underestimated. Spring is one of the most volatile seasons across the United States because it's a true transitional period. The transition from cold air to warm air means that spring often produces uneven bad weather, storms, tornadoes, and floods that can devastate localized areas. And here's what to know and how to stay safe. Why is spring so volatile? During spring, lingering cold air from winter frequently clashes with strengthening warmth and moisture surging northward from the Gulf. At the same time, the jet stream often remains active and can dip far south, creating strong wind shear and powerful storm systems. That combination of temperature, contrast, moisture, and atmospheric energy makes spring the peak season for severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, large hail, and damaging wind gusts. It's also a time when slow-moving storm systems can trigger significant flooding. Flood risks are often overlooked. Spring flood risks are easy to miss. Heavy rain falling on saturated ground or melting snowpack can escalate into flash flooding in a matter of hours, the National Weather Service warns. Waterlogged soil from snowmelt and early season downpours mean flash flooding can happen fast, even when storms don't look all that bad on the radar. Cities can be particularly vulnerable because pavement prevents water from soaking in. In the southeast, although the region is well known for tornadoes, flooding is often the bigger killer. Slow-moving thunderstorms can dump large amounts of rainfall over the same area repeatedly, overwhelming creeks, rivers, and drainage systems. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, just a few inches of fast-moving water can sweep away vehicles, making flooded roads especially deadly. On the west coast, spring storms often arrive on already sodden ground. That raises the risk of mudslides and debris flows, especially near burn scars from past wildfires. Even moderate rainfall can trigger slope failures. Nocturnal tornadoes and tornado outbreaks. What surprises many people isn't just tornadoes, but tornadoes that hit after dark. Nighttime events are particularly dangerous because people are asleep and tornado warnings might not be received in time. Many tornadoes occur at night in the spring, making them especially dangerous because people are sleeping and visibility is low. In addition, one thing people often underestimate about spring weather is how quickly conditions can change. A warm, sunny afternoon can turn into a widespread severe weather threat by evening. The Weather Service warns that even experienced residents can underestimate how quickly conditions can turn life-threatening. Wildfires and dust storms can be just as dangerous in the spring. Many people associate wildfire season with summer, but spring can be just as dangerous. Dry vegetation, low humidity, and strong winds create prime fire conditions, sometimes before peak heat arrives. Another underestimated hazard is blowing dust. Spring wind events can produce sudden dust storms that reduce visibility near zero, leading to deadly highway pileups. The Weather Service routinely issues high wind and fire weather warnings during the spring. Late season cold, hail, lightning, and wind, wild temperature swings. Other weather dangers include late season snow and hard freezes, which can still occur well into spring across parts of the plains, Midwest and Northeast, catching travelers, gardeners, and even municipalities off guard.
And here's your page one cover story. Sometimes it's okay not to be okay. The movement fights mental health crises on college campuses. Jayla Cole never experienced what most would consider a carefree teenage years. She couldn't get a driver's license because of epilepsy and frequent seizures. She didn't want to take photos or selfies because of Bell's palsy left her with a permanent facial paralysis. It was a twisted smile, and that led to bullying by her classmates. Now, her father, who was a heavy drinker, brought additional trauma. He dipped in and out of her life when it was convenient while introducing her to other children that he'd fathered. Papa was a rolling stone, but he rarely rolled to her when she needed him. When he did, the drunken interactions were often toxic and painful. I was very depressed in my teenage years, and I just didn't want to be alive, Cole said. I was always depressed in high school. I was always sad in high school. I never got the help I needed in high school. So then when I got to college, I realized that you don't want to hold on to these things. Hold on to the trauma, she said. If you don't get help now, when will you? That's the message Active Minds is pushing for young Americans to hear. Now, this organization, it's a Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit. It works to empower youth and young adults to erase the stigmas surrounding mental health. A lot of college students have mental health issues, Cole said. Most people on campuses are struggling with depression, anxiety, and more, and they don't know how to talk to their family and friends about it. A growing movement. You're not alone in this. Mental health is just as important as physical health. Depression, anxiety, and panic attacks are not signs of weaknesses. They're signs of trying to be too strong for too long. Self-care is paramount. Seeking help is a sign of strength, not something to be ashamed of. Childhood trauma should not be ignored. Now, these are the life lessons of Active Minds, which continues to grow on high schools and college campuses. Declining mental health among teens and young adults has become a growing crisis. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, young adults in the 18 to 25 age group have the highest rates of mental illnesses at 36%. No one was talking about it. Active Minds has roughly 600 active chapters on many of our nation's campuses, including Northwestern University, Columbia University, University of Delaware, Baylor University, etc. Allison Malman realized from the depths of her grief that no one was talking about mental health, so she started talking about it. The only silence she wanted was that of the stigmas that had kept so many people quiet. Her work then spread to other campuses, and Active Minds, it was incorporated as a nonprofit organization back in 2003. Now, this organization, it helps empower students to lobby college administrators on their needs, including expanding mental health services and improving messaging to encounter the lasting stigmas surrounding seeking help. Then it's up to the students to serve as peer support for one another, like on those days when finals are stressing them out, personal relationships are challenging them, or when someone simply needs a listening ear. Studies have shown that young people may be more likely to seek help from their social networks, such as their own peers. Cooking becomes a therapy. J. Michael Martin Jr., a national PBS host and storyteller, has been named as the newest Active Minds National Mental Health Ambassador. He knows how to connect with the students he'll encounter as he travels from state to state, including a recent trip to Jayla Cole's school, and that was in Tennessee, because he has had his own struggles. Now, he found refuge in the kitchen. Martin, who's 42 and he's a Seattle resident, he grew up with addiction. His mother died from a fentanyl overdose in 24, struggled to raise him and his 6 siblings, but she did teach him to cook. It was the love she could give and the one that he still carries around. He recalls around age 11 coming home from school and finding his mother in the kitchen talking to herself while running water from the sink overflowed everywhere. I remember I helped her, Martin said, but I didn't know what that was. I didn't even know what was happening. At 15, Martin remembers his mother drinking heavily and asking him to crush pills for her outside a grocery store. To this day, he doesn't know what she was taking, but the alcohol and pill cocktail would make her fade in and out, sometimes even while driving. I didn't think less of her because I just wanted to protect her, he said, and when we were in the kitchen together, it was magic. He watched his mother's life fall apart, from living in a big house and being a lady at church to living in an apartment and then finally a trailer park. Charmaine Lynn Martin, a perfectly imperfect mother. She died at age 59. So Martin, he goes out and he talks to these vulnerable students. He sometimes even cooks for them. Jay's chopped sandwiches for them. He shares his testimonies, because if you're not giving, you're not living. Sure, he could be angry about how his mother let him down, how he had to navigate such a life as an oldest sibling without very much guidance. But he has chosen freedom. Freedom to shed the weight of familiar addiction and spiritual abuse. Now, Martin is a husband and a father of 3, including a son who is in college. Still, it took an emotional breakdown back in 2017 for him to recognize that he needed to start dealing with his own childhood traumas, because he didn't want that reality for his own children or for the generations of young adults that he would ultimately mentor. Now, he sees the struggle, he knows the struggle, and he wants to help. I'm giving them what I wish someone had given me, Martin says. There's a message. It's okay not to be okay. There's something beautiful about brokenness and when you start to heal. And then they have a nice picture of him. He's looking very sincere, looking off to the side. He's dressed warmly in a coat and a cap. And it reads, J. Michael Martin Jr., who's a national PBS host and storyteller. He has now been named Active Minds National Mental Health Ambassador.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:13. Voters in Texas, Arkansas, and North Carolina kick off the election season. Experts are watching for clues to national trends. Election season has officially arrived. This week welcomes the first 2026 midterm races of the year, starting with primaries in Arkansas, North Carolina, and Texas today. The 3 races will tip the dominoes in the packed primary calendar, with elections taking place across the country between now and November. Control of Congress is at stake, and these first few primaries in early March will be closely watched for what they might signal: voter turnout, inter-party tussles, and how last year's controversial redistricting is reshaping political dynamics. All 3 states will be voting in the federal primary races today for U.S. Senate seats and more than 50 in the U.S. House. Here's what to watch: the high-stakes Texas Senate primary. In Texas, both Republicans and Democrats are holding primaries to choose who will go head-to-head in one of the nation's most potentially explosive U.S. Senate races in the fall. The Lone Star State also is holding several U.S. House primaries in all of its 38 districts. After the state passed its new congressional maps at the behest of President Trump, many Texans will be casting their first votes post-redistricting. Democrats are hoping to flip the Senate seat, with leading candidates Representative Jasmine Crockett and Texas State Representative James Tallarico squaring off in an increasingly costly and combative race. Tallarico said his campaign raised $2.5 million. On the Republican side, longtime Republican Senator John Cornyn is facing steep competition in his bid for a fifth term from two loyal MAGA firebrands, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Representative Wesley Hunt. Trump hasn't endorsed in the race, though he had them on stage during his February 27th rally. A real Clear Politics average of recent polls on February 26th shows Paxton ahead by more than 2 percentage points in the primary, followed closely by Cornyn with Hunt in a distant third. The race would go to a runoff May 26th if no candidate gets more than 50% of the vote. A significant majority of Trump-backed candidates have won in primaries in 2022, 20, and 18. Texas's first votes are post-redistricting. Texas led the way last year in the Trump-led effort to redistrict congressional borders and make them more GOP-friendly. Today, voters in several U.S. House primary races will be asked to choose from the state's newly scrambled field of politicians. The Houston area's newly drawn 18th congressional district, for example, features recently sworn-in Representative Christian Menifee against longtime Representative Al Green in a Democratic primary. North of Houston, in the new 2nd congressional district, Republican Danny Crenshaw is facing multiple primary challengers, including from State Representative Steve Toff, a conservative who has Senator Ted Cruz's endorsement. North Carolina's battleground Senate state. Former Democratic Governor Roy Moore and former Republican National Chair Michael Whatley are expected to win their party's respective nominations on Tuesday for an open U.S. Senate seat and then face off in November. They're running to replace retiring GOP Senator Thom Tillis, who passed on another race after sparring with Trump last summer during the president's push for a sweeping tax, Medicaid, and border spending law. As in Texas, North Carolina is also heading into the 2026 election year with its own new congressional borders. There, Democratic Josh Stein had no power under state law to stop the GOP legislature from approving changes aimed at flipping a newly drawn seat in the northeastern corner and a base of the moderate Democratic U.S. Representative Don Davis. On March 3rd, that's today, 5 Republicans vie for a spot on the general election ballot to challenge Davis, who's running unopposed among Democrats. Deep red Arkansas heads to the polls. Arkansas Republican Senator Tom Cotton faces a pair of primary challengers today in his bid to secure his party's nomination for a third term. Democrats are picking between Louisville Mayor Ethan Dunbar and Hallie Schaffner, a farmer and small business owner. 2 of the solidly red state's 4 congressional districts have active primaries. In the 2nd district, surrounding Little Rock, Republican Representative French Hill faces a GOP primary challenger, and 2 Democrats face off for their party's nomination. In the 4th district, 2 Democrats will battle in today's primary for their chance to challenge the district's Republican Representative Bruce Westerman in the fall.
And Americans share hope and worry after the strikes. Protests and celebrations reflect common reactions. As the news broke that the U.S. launched military strikes across Iran and killed Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Americans thousands of miles away gathered nationwide as mixed emotions rippled through the communities with close ties to that region. Demonstrators gathered in U.S. cities big and small, from New York City, Washington, L.A., to Waynesboro, Virginia, and Worcester, Massachusetts. In Detroit, student groups from various universities had been set for demonstration February 28th, centered on a U.S. immigration policy, but then added a protest to their plans upon learning of these Iran strikes. More than 70 people showed up to the Wayne State University's campus for their student-led demonstration that afternoon. But there's been no clear objective expressed in terms of why we're there. Are we there to destroy the nuclear program? Are we there to overturn the regime? Are we there to protect protesters? Why are we even there? a fear of civil unrest. According to a Reuters/Ipsos poll released 48 hours after the U.S. and Israel launched their joint military operation, only 1 in 4 Americans approve of these Iran strikes. Speakers at a protest at Worcester City Hall in Massachusetts were skeptical of whether the strikes would improve Iranian lives, condemning what they have described as the financial and moral cost of warfare in the Middle East. The strikes sparked fear among some that civil unrest in the country of 92 million people would just cause more suffering. Then, by midday, February 28th, the Iranian Red Cross reported that at least 200 people had been killed in these airstrikes. You can't just bomb people into liberation, they said through tears. What are they thinking? Waiting for the moment. For others, the news of the strikes, it was welcomed with joy. Students at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee celebrated Khamenei's death with pastries in the student union. Narjeh Kodadeh, a PhD student and president of the school's Iranian Student Association, acknowledged concerns about the future, but said she and many others in Iran, including her own family, they're happy and they're hopeful for brighter days ahead. We were waiting for this help and praying for it for a long time, she said. We had 2 very hard and sad months, and we were waiting for this moment. Iranians around the world, they are excited. They are happy, she says. They're outside and they're celebrating. We are out of tears. R.A. Kashanapur, an Arizona-based Iranian American whose family mostly does remain in Iran, had a different perspective, though. The attack leaves Iranians caught between authoritarians, he told the Arizona Republic, part of the USA Today network. He worried the attack would lead to more violence among the Iranians. Too much bloodshed has already flowed out, she told the outlet in a text message. Now, unfortunately, it looks like there will be more to come. We're just out of tears. Brian Costello of Phoenix, he called for the U.S. to work towards peace at the city's March for Life rally back on February 28th. I understand that sometimes peace can only come by the sword, but we have to be more careful.
Justices sidestep a push in Alabama to ban panhandling. A push by Republican states to ban panhandling was sidelined at the Supreme Court, which rejected on yesterday an invitation from Alabama to rule that begging is not protected speech under the First Amendment. In an appeal backed by 19 Republican attorneys general from other states, Alabama had asked the court to decide whether the Constitution allows criminalizing panhandling. A homeless man from Montgomery, Jonathan Singleton, successfully challenged the state's panhandling bans as a violation of his free speech rights. Today it is me, tomorrow it could be you. Singleton was cited 6 times for violating a state law against soliciting contributions, including for holding a sign that read, homeless, today it's me, tomorrow it could be you, while standing near a highway exit. Violators could be punished with fines up to $500 or 3 months in jail under the anti-begging law. Another measure sets fines up to $100 or as many as 10 days in jail for soliciting contributions from people in cars. After Singleton filed a class action suit in 2020, lower courts blocked enforcement of the laws. A federal appeals court in Atlanta cited its previous decision in a different case from Florida that begging is protected by the First Amendment. A 3-judge panel of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals said Alabama's laws are different from a ban on panhandling on Fort Lauderdale's beaches, which was upheld in 1999, since those restrictions weren't citywide. Alabama told the Supreme Court that officials need more leeway to address panhandling amid the homelessness crisis and a dramatic growth in policies aimed at dealing with the problem. At the birth of a nation, states banned idleness and wandering. Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall argued that begging was a crime at the start of the nation, so it should not be protected speech under the First Amendment. At the founding, states commonly prohibited idleness, wandering about with no course of business or fixed residence, begging in the streets, and the like, Marshall wrote in his appeal. The basic theory inherited from the English was to distinguish those who could work but refused from those who could not. Courts have said begging is protected by the First Amendment. Lawyers for Singleton countered that the historic laws Alabama cites criminalized the conduct of voluntary idleness, not the communicative aspect of begging. And if they did cover begging, Singleton's lawyer said, First Amendment protections aren't determined by what laws were on the books at a single moment in time. That's why Alabama's argument cuts against the position taken by courts and against the Supreme Court's long and unbroken line of precedent recognizing that speech seeking charitable relief is protected by the First Amendment, his lawyers wrote.
Americans with families in Mexico, they worry about the cartels. Until normal, that's in quotes, normal returns, people find dark humor. Days after chaotic displays of cartel-related violence in the Mexican state of Jalisco, Eva Zarate's group chat with family in Mexico and the U.S. went quiet. Cars and OXXO convenience stores burned across the region, including where her relatives live in Guadalajara. The unrest was apparent retaliation for the February 22nd Mexican military operation in Jalisco, where officials had said led to the capture and the death of drug cartel boss Nemesio Ruben Acerwera Cervantes. Many Mexican Americans, such as Zarate, now that's a 33-year-old therapist who lives in Oakland, California, sent flurries of WhatsApp messages and calls checking on her family. They continuously try to work out how their families can remain safe in their own cities, their towns and villages, among this country's decades-long bloody war against organized crime, including this most recent takedown of another wanted drug trafficker. Families in the U.S. are waiting to see how normalcy returns for their relatives in Mexico and what policies in both countries mean for families on either side of the border. Effects of unrest visible in these WhatsApp groups. As she called and messaged families, Zarate realized relatives were closer to the violent clashes than she had previously thought. I think it was like just hearing these gunshots, she said. She said family members sent videos showing that they were safe, including them driving past cars who were still on fire on the side of the road. Some even made jokes about the situation. Relatives messaged that they were glad Zarate and her husband had left before the unrest. But then the chats became quiet as people hunkered down. The operation and ensuing retaliation, which resulted in the deaths of 25 Mexican National Guard members and 34 suspected gang members. It resulted in only one known civilian death, according to Reuters. Jalisco issued a code red that shuttered businesses and schools, though, for days. Amid tourism worries, families worry about their own essentials. The February 22nd unrest, while limited in civilian deaths, it exposed how widespread the cartel's reaches in several parts of Mexico during the drug war, which has been fueled by American firearms and a demand for narcotics, including fentanyl. Several states in Mexico saw blockades or looting, and people were hesitant to leave their homes. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo has promised to return to normalcy in the aftermath. Business groups in Puerto Vallarta and other picturesque destinations, they have tried to ensure that tourism returns at the height of the tourist season. Fake images, though, feed the public. Oswaldo Zavala, a City of University of New York professor of Latin American literature and culture, and a journalist from the border city of Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, said information on the aftermath, it has been difficult to process, particularly with viral fake videos or footage without context. Mexicans have also seen increasingly militarized responses to drug trafficking, with policies pushed by the U.S. Most people don't necessarily have a formed opinion of how to react on this, Zavala said. Rather, what we have grown necessarily accustomed to is to seeing these expressions of violence as confusing moments derived from military actions in the country. Now, some people on both sides of the border have tried to diffuse tension with dark humor. Social media users have posted memes about Mexican bread vendors now armed with rocket launchers. Others, they poke fun American tourists who are fearful of the cartel violence. Zarat, though, the therapist, said her family's WhatsApp groups have become more active. However, Zarat said, I feel not just helpless with what was happening on Sunday with their safety. Now I'm feeling helpless with even supporting them. Still, she and her husband, they have vowed to return this year to see their own family.
Well, you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 12:29, and we're going on to the money section. Google offers a century bond. Alphabet's message, we will be around in 2126. Alphabet, parent company of Google, made news in February when it issued a 100-year bond. Yes, a bond with a repayment date a century from now. It's hard to imagine many investors would line up to buy century bonds, given that most of us won't live long enough to see our investment repaid. You and I will not be around when these bonds expire, said Jason Moser, senior investment analyst at the Motley Fool. Yet with this 100-year bond issue, Alphabet telegraphed to the investment community that it expects to be around in 21-26, and so did the institutional investors, pension funds, and hedge funds that bought them. The tech giant drew bids worth nearly 10 times the bond's value, roughly $1.4 billion in U.S. dollars. And according to Bloomberg, the 100-year bond is part of a larger offering that raised nearly $32 billion in a 24-hour span. Armchair American investors couldn't buy Google Century bonds even if they wanted to. They were issued in Britain in minimum denominations of 100,000 British pounds, with a perspective that barred their sale to retail investors. Alphabet is borrowing money despite annual revenue that tops $400 billion as it ramps up a massive AI spending spree. In February, the company announced it plans AI capital investments of $175 billion or more in 2026. A $1 billion bond is issued pocket change for Alphabet, a company with a market capitalization of $3.8 trillion. But analysts say the Century bond holds symbolic value. I think Google is saying, we're issuing a 100-year bond because we can, and not every company can do that, said Lawrence Gillum, chief fixed income strategist for LPL Financial. A Century bond speaks to Alphabet's corporate confidence in the fast-changing tech industry, which watched the decline of many heavyweights, from Xerox to BlackBerry to Motorola. They're making a statement saying, hey, listen, we're still going to be around in 100 years. Lozer said, as a Google shareholder myself, I feel like it's a confidence booster. Having the bravado to issue a 100-year bond does not, of course, guarantee you will be around in 100 years. Century bonds are rare in corporate America, rarer still in tech. The last 100-year bond in the tech industry came from Motorola in 1997. A cell phone and pager pioneer, Motorola faded with the rise of the smartphone. Motorola is still in business, still paying interest on its 100-year bond holders, but its decline provides a cautionary tale. IBM issued a 100-year bond in 1996. In the years that followed, the computer giant lost market share and eventually exited the PC business. Those Century bondholders have fared better than others. Since 1990, U.S. public companies have issued at least 38 Century bonds. Only 17 of those companies are still around, said Caleb Silver, an editor-in-chief of Investopedia. So why would anyone buy a 100-year bond? Why would an insurance company or pension fund buy a 100-year bond? Why would anyone? One reason is that Century bonds tend to pay an unusually high yield. Alphabet's 100-year bond offers an interest rate of 6.125%. That compares favorably to current yields on 10 and 20 and 30-year bonds that range between 4 and 5%. Even in the last 40 years, you've had many companies issue 100-year bonds, and investors want them because they pay a very high yield. Hedge funds and pension funds buy 100-year bonds to produce a long and stable source of income to balance long-term debts that are on their books. There's an appetite for it, Silver said. It sounds unusual. It actually is not that unusual. If Alphabet still exists as a company in 21-26, great, but Century bondholders aren't necessarily counting on that. If you're a pension fund or an insurance company, you can be pretty confident Alphabet is going to be around 10 years from now, and that's good enough. Should bondholders ever grow concerned about Alphabet's future, they could probably find a buyer on the secondary market, albeit at a discount. Someone else will still buy them. You're not going to walk away with nothing. In the worst case scenario, if Alphabet were to go bust, 100-year bondholders would recoup at least some of their money in a bankruptcy court. There's some sort of protection, he said, but odds are you won't be getting 100 cents on the dollar.
Mortgage rates fall below 6% for the first time since 2022. It has taken 3.5 years, but mortgage rates finally have a 5 handle. Borrowing costs for home loans pushed above 6% back in September of 22 and have been at least that high and even 7% range since then. But on February 26, Freddie Mac's weekly average stood at 5.98% for the popular 30-year fixed mortgage rate. That's a national average, and some local areas may still have rates above 6%, but others may have enjoyed rates in the 5s for some time now. Buyers can get more for their money. Lower rates mean that buyers can afford more homes, says Bhavesh Patel, consumer channel executive at Chase Home Lending. For every 0.25% reduction in the rates, a prospective buyer can afford about 2.5% more house, he says. So this could be a good time for buyers who've been waiting on the sidelines to get into the market, Patel said. So how real is the rate lock? Though it's easy to see the impact of the lower mortgage rates on buyers, there has been a lot of press in recent years about rate lock, or how today's homeowners don't relish the prospect of giving up their ultra-low rates to become sellers. So as of the third quarter of 2025, the most recent data available, nearly half of all homeowners with mortgages had rates between 3 and 5%, according to an analysis. Other 1/5 still had rates below 3%. For many of those owners, selling a home and then having to take out a new loan with rates above 6%, well, it made the trade just not worth it. Rate lock doesn't matter so much as the news would make it seem, says Benjamin Clark, who's the owner of Homebuyer Representation in Salt Lake City. Clark had 2 clients under contract to buy right now, both of whom are also selling homes that they bought decades ago. People are moving because it's just the right time to move, and they have enough equity that the interest rate doesn't bother them that much, he said. Now, importantly, Clark said, the housing market overall, it may have cooled down from the heady highs and the lows of the past few years. Anyone who's out house hunting now has seen the rates hold steady in the low 6s for a while, he said, and they aren't kicking themselves for timing the market wrong. You just have a lot more people saying, I might be able to make this happen, than 2 or 3 years ago.
For some, getting a passport is a chore. Transgender and non-binary Americans are running into issues. Opening the package containing his new passport was an emotional moment for Patrick. He waited nearly a year for it, and the former Texas resident wasn't even sure it would be valid after receiving a useless one in the summer with an incorrect gender marker. Patrick, whose identity is identified by his first name only in this article for safety and privacy reasons, initially applied to renew his passport at the end of 2024 to go on a honeymoon with his wife. Though hers was approved in a week, his application and other vital documents, including his gender change court order, were held up. He is one of thousands of transgender, non-binary, and intersex Americans affected by President Donald Trump's executive order on January 20th of 2025, acknowledges only 2 sexes, male and female, designated at birth. Under the order, the U.S. State Department said in an email to USA Today in March that it would issue passports only with a male or female sex marker that matches the applicant's biological sex. Applications for the X gender marker, implemented in 2022 to accommodate the 1.2 million non-binary Americans and about 5.6 million intersex U.S. residents, or binary changes, were immediately suspended. After being sent the wrong passport, Patrick had nearly given up. Then he saw some people on social media get theirs after submitting paperwork for free, such as TikTokers Casey Mother Freaking James and Sam.B67 during a court-ordered pause in the class action federal lawsuit, or versus Trump filed by the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU of Massachusetts, and the law firm Covington and Burlington LLP. Patrick followed suit, reapplying in September 2025. It was wild because I'd already gone through this the first time and waited forever and then was disappointed. So I tried not to get my hopes up, to be honest with you, Patrick said. Less than 2 weeks later, Patrick finally had the right passport in his hands, and with it, new doors have opened. He's now starting a new job as a flight attendant for a major U.S. carrier, a highly visible job he felt was out of my reach as a transgender person and impossible without a correct passport. More than a year after Trump's order, members of the transgender, non-binary, and intersex community continue to be left in uncertainty as they persevere for their right to an accurate identification document, affect their ability to move freely and more. The short window during the court-ordered pause closed in November 2025. Even those who received their passports after months of waiting don't feel fully safe or relieved. Many are worried that their now accurate passports could be taken away at any time, and the policy being reinstated feels like another step toward the administration's attempt to publicly erase their existence, they say. Still, these Americans are not giving up. The ACLU filed Orr versus Trump in February 2025, alleging that the passport ban discriminates against the LGBTQ plus community and is unconstitutional by violating people's rights to travel in privacy. Being forced to out themselves as transgender during a passport inspection could put someone at risk for harassment or discrimination, it said. Ashton Orr, one of the 7 plaintiffs in the lawsuit, received his accurate passport just 5 months of waiting in June. And he was once accused of using a fake ID after his old passport still listed his gender as female, while his driver's license listed him as male. We didn't choose to be trans, but we're choosing to stand up for our rights to live honestly and safely, and have accurate identification as part of that, Orr said. That's why this lawsuit matters. On June 17th, the U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts expanded a preliminary injunction that required the State Department to process all applications requesting an X gender marker or binary change. At that, people who had received an incorrect passport could reapply free and receive an accurate one. The State Department returned to issuing only passports as defined by Trump's executive order on November 6th, after the Supreme Court granted the administration's request to appeal the preliminary injunction, concluding the ACLU was unlikely to succeed, according to ACLU attorney Aditi Frudiwala. If the applicant's biological sex is not sufficiently established, we will request additional information from him or her, a State Department spokesperson told USA Today. Once we have the needed information, we will issue a new passport in the applicant's biological sex at birth. Still, the lawsuit is far from over. With litigation in a very early stage, Fruit-Wallace said, the claims, including the right to travel and privacy, as well as the Equal Protection Act, have not yet been fully considered by the court. We're forging ahead. We're considering this a detour, not the end of the road for us. As long as the passport is valid and unexpired, people are legally allowed to use it, despite the ban back in effect, according to the State Department website. U.S. citizens cannot be denied re-entry to the country. Take things a day at a time. The passport continues to place a mental and emotional burden on the transgender, non-binary, and intersex communities. Without such a crucial identification document properly affecting who they are, advocates say they not only lose their ability to travel abroad, but could have trouble securing housing or a job. Transgender adults comprise less than 1% of the population, but have faced repeated setbacks in dismantling their rights by the Trump administration, including the ousting of transgender military service members and cutting off funding for hospitals to provide gender-affirming care to minors. I think where we are right now, just with the state of everything in the world surrounding the trans communities and our rights, is truly just having to take things a day at a time, said Orr, who moved from West Virginia, where he was born and raised, to Maryland, which he feels is a safer place as a transgender man. There are some days when I'm having to break it down, taking things truly minute by minute. That's truly what all of us in this trans community are going through right now. Although Patrick's excited about his new chapter in his life, he feels conflicted about his passport, knowing many people in his community are still left behind. I feel bad because I know that I'm one of the lucky few, he said. He's also concerned about losing the vital documents and being unable to get another. Why I am pursuing a job where I have to have one, and they can easily take it away, and then I'm back where I started, but jobless? Or echoes the sentiment of many in his community saying he won't give up the fight. I do truly believe that we're going to be on the right side of history here, he said. We just have to keep pushing and hope that trans folks continue to live live their lives fully and authentically.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our time is 12:43. Now we have USA Today's column, Ask Johnny, about our human resource questions. And of course, Johnny is our expert. First, we have confront gender stereotypes in workplace. Being professional and self-aware, well, that can help a lot. So here's the first question to Johnny. Someone in leadership told me it's hard to take me seriously because I look so sweet and I smile a lot. But how do I change this perception without just changing myself? And this comes from Maria. Here's his answer to Maria. Let's start with the obvious. Comments like this often sit squarely in the territory of gender stereotypes, and those stereotypes have no place at work. Being told that you're too sweet or dismissed because of how you smile, that says far more about the speaker's bias bias than your competence. If comments like this cross a line or feel rooted in sexism, human resources or upper management should get involved. Now, here's where the conversation gets more complicated. Like it or not, perception does matter at work. Most people don't bring their fully authentic selves into every professional setting, and nor should they. The workplace requires judgment, context, and an ability to read the room. That's not selling out, it's just professionalism. So the key question here is whether that comment was feedback to be considered or just simply an offhand remark. Constructive feedback, it comes with specifics and a path forward. Bias masquerades as an opinion with no guidance and no intent to help. Your job is to separate the signal from the noise. You figure out what, if anything, helps you perform better, and then you just discard the rest. It is important to realize that this is a meaningful difference between being friendly and being unserious. Smiling and warmth and approachability, those are strengths, but giggling in meetings or avoiding difficult conversations or failing to project confidence can undermine your credibility. You must assess whether any of that applies or whether this was simply just someone projecting off-base expectations. And if you're not sure, a close colleague or a mentor may be able to offer you an opinion. Now, the reality is every professional cultivates a work persona. You already do this, whether you even realize it or not. You speak differently to your boss than you do to your closest colleague. You show up more polished in a meeting than at lunch with friends. You think of yourself in a job interview. Still you, but just more intentional. So that means knowing when humor fits in and when gravity serves you better. It means choosing when to be playful, when to be firm. It doesn't mean stripping away your warmth or changing who you are. So without question, gender stereotypes, they deserve to be challenged, but not accommodated. At the same time, part of career growth involves discernment, deciding what feedback sharpens you and what belongs in the rearview mirror. Now remember this as well. When someone thinks of you, often says more about them than it does about you. So here's my advice. Be professional. Be self-aware. Be strategic. And be very clear on this point. You don't need to become less sweet to be taken seriously.
Frida's baby marketing upsets parents. The firm says it's refining our tone moving forward. Frida Baby, a popular brand that sells postpartum and baby care products, is being criticized online for some of its marketing tactics after Instagram campaigns posted 5 years ago resurfaced. Now the company says it's retiring some assets. Customers began talking to social media in February to boycott Frida products, pointing to sexual innuendos on some of the company's packaging and advertising. And here's a picture of one that says, "How about a quickie?" And then they're actually selling thermometers. There is a time and a place for adult humor, and baby products ain't it, content creator Chrissy Horton said in a video posted to Instagram February 16th. The post has generated thousands of responses and hundreds of comments. Baby Frida, in response to the backlash, says the brand has always used humor to discuss the messier aspects of parenthood. From the very beginning, Frida has used humor to talk about real, raw, and messy parts of parenting that too often go unspoken. Frida said in a statement, "We do this because parenting can be isolating and overwhelming, and sometimes a moment of levity is what makes a hard experience feel human, shared, and survivable." In a statement posted to Instagram, Frida said it would be retiring legacy assets and changes its tone to make sure it always meets the moment. Frida did not specify what assets it would be retiring. Baby Frida adds packaging with sexual innuendos. Screenshots of 2020 and 2021 posts from Frida's official Instagram page have resurfaced on social media, igniting conversation about the appropriateness of the marketing tactic. USA Today scrolled through the Instagram page to confirm such posts. Though newer posts don't appear to contain sexual innuendos, older posts did. Internet sleuths have been digging up the posts and leaving fresh comments. Instagram users have criticized these posts. A 2020 post with a photo of a baby with sweat on his forehead with the caption, "Getting all hot and sweaty, thinking about what's dropping tomorrow." And a 2020 post advertising filters for the brand's nasal aspirator with the caption, "And remember, suck, don't swallow. Please don't Google that." And another post from 2021 in which Frida announced a new baby product with the caption, "Hey mom, What is nightstand top drawer worthy? Battery operated and comes in clutch when things are hot and steamy. In a video posted in 2021 demonstrating how the nasal aspirator works on an infant with the caption, "Pull out game strong." One product on the store shelves, the Frida's Baby 3-in-1 forehead touchless thermometer, teases on the side of packaging, "How about a quickie?" Internet users debate the Baby Frida's posts. Several screenshots from such posts have been making the rounds on social media and sparking debate. Absolutely disgusted by all the innuendo comments on your baby products, one commenter wrote on a video of a baby with the caption, "Pull out game strong." "This is sick. How have you gotten away with language like this for so long?" Another said. A petition was also created to hold Frida Baby accountable for their sexualization of babies in their marketing, and asked the Advertising Standards Authority to investigate Frida Baby's marketing practices. As a first-time mom, I was stunned reading these captions, the petition's creator, Regan Montanez, wrote. I had to look twice to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. The petition was created on change.org at the beginning of February and has since collected more than 27,000 signatures. But others have come to the company's defense. And it is a little funny, no? Content creator Daniel Anello posted on Instagram, "If I can get a little humor and chuckle out of sucking the snot out of my child's nose, then I'm okay with it. It's just packaging." On Facebook, other commenters also said they would keep using the products. "I'm not mad, and I'm not going to continue sucking boogies from my baby's nose with the Frida." Content creator Danielle Elizabeth posted. Frida responds to backlash. Frida Baby issued the following in May email statements to USA Today in response to the renewed outcry online. Addressing the humor, the company says has always been present in its campaigns. "Our products are designed for babies, but our voice has always been written for the adults caring for them." The statement said, "Our intention has consistently been to make awkward and difficult experiences feel lighter, more honest, and less isolating for parents. We will continue to show up with honesty, empathy, and courage. With each decision we make, we will continue to evaluate how we express our voice so that our commitment to families is unmistakable and our tone always meets the moment." The company has responded in Instagram saying it was retiring selected legacy assets and refining our tone moving forward. For Baby Frida's history of our viral marketing. Frida has a history of eyebrow-raising marketing with a focus on unfiltered pregnancy and parenting. Recently, Frida created a Mardi Gras float to celebrate breastfeeding. "We live in a world that loves books as long as they're doing what society wants them to do," Frida's baby Instagram post stated. But the moment boobs start doing their actual job, feeding a baby, leaking through a shirt, existing unevenly, painfully honestly, everyone suddenly gets shy and uncomfortable. In October 2025, the brand released booger-inspired candies that look like actual boogers. In August 2025, the brand unveiled its breast milk-flavored ice cream in partnership with Oddfellows, a small batch ice cream company based in New York.
And now I'm going to take you back to our front section from our next article. Dramatic changes seen in one of the universe's biggest stars, WOH G64, that's the star. It's observed from evolving from red to yellow. The largest stars in the universe live the life of a rock star. They're born brilliant, they live fast, and they die young. So if that's the case, this one that's named WOH G64, it might be considered the stellar equivalent of Jimi Hendrix. WOH G64, which is 28 times the mass of the Sun and resides in a satellite galaxy to the Milky Way called the Large Magellanic Cloud, is one of a handful of the biggest stars known. Researchers have observed a change that occurred in 2014 in the star's color, corresponding to an increase in its surface temp as it evolved from red to yellow. Now, the star has been classified as an extreme red supergiant, but it rapidly became a yellow hypergiant. Now, that transition happened quickly in cosmic terms, and with no evidence of an eruption or an explosion. Typically, the evolution of a star, it takes place on timescales of billions of years. No current stellar models can fully explain this transformation in WOHG 64, said Munoz Sanchez, who worked on the study at the National Observatory in Athens. Now, compared with the Sun, its luminosity is about 300,000 times greater, and its diameter is 1,500 times greater. If it were in the place of the Sun, its surface would extend to a distance between the orbits of Jupiter and Saturn, our solar system's fifth and sixth planets. WOHG 64, around 10 million years old, it appears to be near the end of its lifespan. Now, in contrast, the Sun is about 4.5 billion years old and has an estimated 5 billion more years left. WOHG 64 is located about 160,000 light years away from Earth. A light year is the distance light travels in a year. That's 5.9 trillion miles. WOHG 64, it's a massive star, and it's very different from the Sun, he said. Stars between about 8 and 23 times the Sun's mass are expected to evolve into red supergiants and then eventually explode as a supernova. For stars in the range of 23 to 30 times the Sun's mass, well, their fate is less certain. It remains unclear whether they go boom as a supernova, whether they collapse directly into forming a black hole, or they evolve from a red supergiant phase into a yellow hypergiant stage before ending their lives. Black holes are exceptionally dense objects with gravity so strong not even light can escape from them. So hence, WOHG 64, it might be the solution to this question, they said. So adding another layer of complexity to understanding the WOHG 64 is the fact that observations indicated it is gravitationally bound to another star in what is called a binary system. Now, the researchers were unable to determine the size or the characteristics of the stellar companion, but said the two might at some point merge. The researchers have come up with hypotheses concerning WO4G64's recent changes. They said it may have experienced a violent episode predating the observational data that turned it red and is now turning its usual yellow quiescent state. They said it is also possible that an interaction between WOHG 64 and its companion had temporarily mimicked the appearance of a red supergiant. As astronomers continue to monitor this remarkable system, WOHG 64, it is poised to reshape our understanding of how the most massive stars live and how they die. And then they have a picture of that. You can just see a picture of outer space with a ring around it and like a glowing looking planet. And it reads the huge star WOHG 64. It is surrounded by a thick donut-shaped cloud, and that shows in the picture. It kind of looks like rings. It's a dust and a blue binary companion some 163,000 light years away from Earth. And then it is seen in this illustration. And you've been listening to a reading of articles from our USA Today for Tuesday, March the 3rd on our Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return to you for more readings just after this short break now. And your readers again today are Jody
and Ellen Blackburn.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of today's articles from today's issue of USA Today. Your readers are
Jody.
and Alan Blackburn, and it's on to the sports section. We're talking about men's college basketball here. Top players are set to march onto the stage. College basketball is back to being dominated by true freshmen. Before former Duke forward Cooper Flagg won the Wooden Award in 2025, an upperclassman had earned the honor in 6 consecutive seasons. Fellow Duke forward Zion Williamson was the last true freshman National Player of the Year before Flagg, which was in 2018-2019. The 2025-26 freshman classes in college men's basketball has been dominant again this season and appears well on its way to producing another young Wooden Award winner. The 2026 NBA draft class appears to be stacked as a result. And here's a look at the eight elite ranked players. Number 1 is F.A.J. Dibonsa of BYU. Dibonsa is already a pro-level scorer as he leads the country, averaging 25 points per game on wild efficiency, shooting 53% from the field. The 6'9" forward has taken his game to another level since Richie Saunders suffered a season-ending injury for BYU. Dibonsa has scored 29 or more points in his last 3 outings since Saunders went down, including a 35-point performance in BYU's loss to Arizona and a near triple-double in a win over Iowa State. Dibonsa is making a strong case to be the number 1 pick in the NBA draft and has faced tougher competition than Cameron Boozer in the Big 12, giving him the nod for now. Number 2, F. Cameron Boozer from Duke. It was a close call between Duke forward Cameron Boozer and Dibonsa, but it doesn't diminish Boozer's chances of being the National Player of the Year. Boozer is putting up similarly efficient numbers this season, averaging 22 points with 10 rebounds and 4 assists per game on 58% shooting. The 6'9" forward is also shooting 40% from the three-point range, averaging 1.7 steals per contest and making him the most well-rounded player nationally right now. Number 3 is G. Darius Acuff Jr. of Arkansas. John Calipari continues to churn out high-level true freshman guards, and Darius Acuff Jr. is the latest. The 6'3" guard is averaging 22 points with 3 rebounds and 6 assists per game this season on 49% shooting and is leading an offense that ranks 4th nationally. Acuff Jr. had one of the best performances in recent memory, albeit in a loss against Alabama, dropping 49 points with 5 rebounds and 5 assists. 4th is G. Darren Peterson of Kansas. Kansas guard Darren Peterson is among the favorites to go number 1 overall draft, with Dibonsa comes in at number 4, only because of availability at times this season. While Peterson played 30 more minutes in back-to-back games for only 3rd time this season, in Kansas' latest games against Cincinnati and Houston, he has missed 11 total games. 5th is forward Yaxel Landeberg of Michigan. The UAB transfer Yaxel Landeberg can do a little bit of everything for Michigan, perhaps the national title favorite. The 6'9" forward is averaging 14 points with 7 rebounds and 3 assists per game this season on 49% shooting. Number 6 is guard Braden Smith of Purdue. 4-year Purdue starting guard Braden Smith might not be in contention for National Player of the Year anymore like he was entering the season, but he's still among the best and most experienced players in college basketball. He needs 72 assists to break Bobby Hurley's all-time assist record of 1,076. And he became the 5th player to reach 1,000 assists in Purdue's loss to Michigan State. 7th is forward Caleb Wilson of North Carolina. The 5th true freshman on this list, Caleb will also hear his name called early in the draft after a strong first college season. The 6'10" forward is averaging 19 points with 9 rebounds and 2 assists per game on 57% shooting. And number 8 is guard Christian Anderson of Texas Tech. Christian Anderson scored 22 points in Texas Tech's Sweet 16 win over Arkansas last season as a true freshman. Offering a glimpse into his future, he's made a huge jump this season, averaging 19 points with 4 rebounds and 7 assists per game on 49% shooting.
And now we're going to talk about the women, college women's hoops. Be on guard for these underrated schools. The NCAA women's basketball tourney begins March 18th. But before that, teams across the country will compete for the chance at winning their respective conference championships. So with that in mind, here are 5 of the most underrated teams in the nation that could make a big impression in these days and weeks ahead. At number 1, they have the Clemson Tigers. After 2 seasons under head coach Sean Poppy, the Tigers already have reached their 20-win mark. It's the first time Clemson has reached 20 since the 2018-19 season, and it's just the second time in the last 25 years. Now, at number 2, they have the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia started its season 14-0 before beginning SEC play in January. The Bulldogs have some head-turning wins that deserve attention. Georgia has ranked victories over Ole Miss, Kentucky, and a 76-74 upset over Vanderbilt. If the Bulldogs can find ways to be consistent before March Madness begins, they could be a team with bracket-busting capabilities. At number 3, they have the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Minnesota has ranked wins over Southern Cal, Ohio State, and Iowa. The victories over the Buckeyes and Hawkeyes also came during a 9-game winning streak during regular season Big Ten. What's more impressive is the Gophers beat Ohio State with a 7-player rotation, a feat only 2 other teams have accomplished this season. At number 4, they have the Colorado Buffaloes. Colorado has 10 new faces this season to add to its 4 returning players. Still, it hasn't stopped the Buffs, who averaged 25.2 bench points per game, from competing with some of the top teams nationwide. And then finally, at number 5, they have the Villanova Wildcats. With 6 losses this season, Villanova should be getting attention. On February 18th, it led the top-ranked and undefeated UConn 40-37 at halftime, the first team to do so this season. The final score of 83-69 was only the second time in UConn's previous 16 games that the Huskies' winning margin was below 30 points. Now, the Wildcats play efficiently, ranking 14th nationwide in assist-to-turnover ratio, and they share the ball. Their 18.4 assists per matchup are 9th in the country. Villanova can also beat teams from the perimeter, shooting 35.8% from the three-point line and making an average of 8.8 shots, 17th nationally, from behind the arc.
Annual underdogs who just win. The baseball Brewers keep defying Major League Baseball's big spenders with smart play. Here's a column by Bob Nightingale. Here we go again. The Milwaukee Brewers are too cheap, too foolish trading away their ace, too reckless trading away their young star third baseman. Surely this will be the year their luck finally runs out, leaving their fans drowning their sorrows in beer, stuffing their faces with cheese curds, and screaming every time they hear "Go Cubs, go" at Wrigley Field. The Brewers hear the mockery, the taunts, the ridicule, and the malice. Their reaction? Honestly, we just don't care. Outfielder and designated hitter Christian Yelich says. It's the same story every year, so go ahead, bring it on, but please don't take it personally if they laugh in your face. It's funny to us because we don't feel like we're underdogs, outfielder Sal Frelick said. We know we didn't go out and spend a lot of money, so that can be the kind of give you the underdog edge. But it's still a little weird to us because we win every year. Indeed, the Brewers have dominated the National League Central for the last 8 years. They've won 3 consecutive division titles, 4 of the last 5 of the last full seasons, and they have averaged 92.6 victories a year since 2020, including a franchise record in Major League leading 97 last year. And not once was there a single season in which they were preseason picks to win the division. I don't mind it if it comes with territory, General Manager Matt Arnold says. If people want to overlook us, that's fine, really. We embrace being underdogs here. Now, here they are this year without ace Freddie Peralta and without starting third baseman Caleb Durbin, joining the Brewers' tradition where Cy Young winner Corbin Burns and all-star closers Josh Hader and Devin Williams were dumped in the last 3 years. This was a winter where their hated rivals, the Cubs, spent $209 million in free agency, while also acquiring Miami Marlins frontline starter Edward Cabrera in a trade. The Brewers spent a grand total of $6.5 million. The Cubs filled their third base spot by signing Alex Bregman to a $175 million contract for 5 years. The Brewers filled their vacancy with Luis Rengifo with a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. So is anyone shocked that the Cubs are heavy favorites to win the National League Central and even running away with it? The Brewers simply shrug their shoulders and yawn and grin. We kind of defy what's going on, starter Brandon Woodruff, who's 33, the longest tenured brewer, tells USA Today. We're not supposed to be doing what we're doing with our payroll and our market. You see what we spend, and it's like how are we going to win again? Then you think, well, we did that last year without spending. We can do it again. What's new? The Brewers are always counted out in March, and in October, everyone's scratching their head and wondering how they pulled it off. The Brewers are always counted out. I get it. We're a small market. Everyone keeps writing us off. All-Star closer Trevor Megill says, the top team is the Dodgers, and you hear everyone saying, how are we or anyone else going to beat them this year? Well, people forget that we're the ones who won the most games last year. In many aspects, the Brewers are the Major League Players Baseball Association's dream team. They're a perennial playoff team year after year, despite a bottom 10 payroll, proving a salary cap isn't necessary for small market teams to win. Our team is a great example of why you don't need a salary cap, Megill says. Get creative. There's more than just one way to win a baseball game. Just because you pay guys all that money doesn't mean they're going to be going to the playoffs. Growing up watching 90s baseball, and the Yankees were doing exactly what the Dodgers are doing. Everyone thought it was cool because it was happening in New York. But now it's on the West. That's the West Coast, and everyone seems to have a problem with it. I think it's great for baseball, and we have a team that's willing to go out there and spend, while teams like us that are underdogs to write their own stories. Growing up, it was the Angels. Who the hell were the Angels in 2002 winning their first World Series? They still do the damn rally monkey nearly 30 years later. So when teams like that pull it off, it's great for baseball. And the Brewers simultaneously can be the union's worst nightmare, too, proving you don't have to spend big bucks at free agency. They had the second lowest payroll among all the playoff teams last year at $115 million, a cool $206 million less than the Dodgers. The Brewers have only two players earning more than $10 million this year, with Yelich at $26 and Woodruff at $22 million. Exactly half of the Dodgers team is earning at least $10 million, including 8 players in excess of $20 million. We proved that you don't need to sign 10 players to $100 million deals to be good and to compete. No, but it sure does help covering up any mistakes with money. Look at the Dodgers. They dropped $72 million last season on free agent closer Tanner Scott, who flopped in his first year. What do? Turn around and throw another $69 million at closer Edwin Diaz this winter, pushing Scott to a setup role. I don't have any problem with teams spending money as a player, but that's what you want to see, Woodruff said. Obviously, the Dodgers have more money than anybody, but they're the juggernauts of Major League Baseball. But you're not going to get mad at them for spending money. It shows the rest of the league, hey, maybe you can spend a little more money here too. The two teams have averaged more than 90 victories a season with 4 division titles in the last 5 years. They just had different styles of getting there, with the Brewers having to trade away potential free agents and prospects to get what they desire while the Dodgers can reach into their bank account. It's crazy, but I feel like the money really doesn't matter. Brewers shortstop Joey Ortiz says, the biggest payroll doesn't mean you're going to win the ball games. The lowest payroll doesn't mean you're going to be the worst team in the league. I feel kind of like we kind of use it as a chip on our shoulders a little bit, just to show up, handle business, and see where we are at the end of the season. We just drown out the outside noise and play our game. Once you're on the field, it's just baseball, not how much your money you're making. Still, the Brewers are constantly faced with money decisions and budgetary concerns. The Dodgers can spend $240 million on outfielder Kyle Tucker. The Brewers owner paid only $223 million for the entire franchise. The Brewers hated the idea of having to trade Peralta, their homegrown and lovable two-time All-Star, went 17-6 with a 2.7 ERA last season. Yet he's a free agent after this year, and when they couldn't reach an agreement on a contract extension, they felt the urgency to trade him. They sent him and reliever Tobias Myers to the Mets for prize-picking prospect Brandon Sproat, and shortstop center fielder Jet Williams, who immediately became the Brewers' number 3 prospect. While everyone anticipated that Peralta would likely be traded once Woodruff accepted his $22 million qualifying offer, the trade of Durbin to the Boston Red Sox was stunning. Durbin, who finished 3rd in the 2025 National League Rookie of the Year balloting, hit .256 with a .721 OPS, exemplified the Brewers' blue-collar, gritty team. He was traded along with infielders Andrew Monasterio and Anthony Siegler for left-handed pitchers Kyle Harrison and Shane Drohan and infielder David Hamilton. It's difficult because Durbin represented how we played, what we were about, said Pat Murphy, the two-time manager of the year, who received a 3-year, $8.95 million contract after the opening of camp.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Our time is 1:15 and we're still in sports. Now let's talk football. Closing day NFL Combine winners and losers. More than 300 college football standouts made their way to Indianapolis this week for the 26th NFL Scouting Combine. The final day of action gave the biggest players of the class their time to shine. So who were some of the big winners and losers from the final day of the Combine? Here's our choices of action. First winner they have is O.T. Monroe Freeling from Georgia. The top tackle prospects in this class almost strictly lined up on the right side of the offensive line. Freeling lined up at the left tackle for all but one snap in 25, with plenty of good tape showing his skill as a pass protector and athleticism. He first measured in at 6'7" and 315 pounds with a massive 34 3/4 inch arms. That's an ideal frame for an offensive tackle. On Sunday, he showed off his talent in his testing numbers. Next, they say a loser. A loser is IOL Brian Parker II from Duke. Parker is a college tackle who likely will have to move inside at the NFL level due to some length questions. With that, a strong showing at the Combine could show that he'd be fighting for a starting role as a rookie. But he didn't have a very good showing in the jump test, and that's a common test to show linemen's power. The next one they have is a winner, O.T. Spencer Fano from Utah. Fano entered the Combine as one of the top offensive line prospects in the class. A star on the right side for the Utes, Fano weighed in heavier than expected at 311 pounds, with his arms just over 32 inches, and those are solid boxes to check. But his calling card is athleticism, and he showed that off at multiple points during the day. Now they have a loser, O.L. Cage Casey from Boise State. Casey faces some questions about sticking at the tackle at NFL level. The former Broncos starter showed some solid athleticism in college, but his leaner frame could keep him from succeeding, and his testing numbers weren't up to the standard compared to many of his peers. And then last, they have another winner. They have O.T. Max Ihienaker from Arizona State. Max is a late riser in this process thanks to his tools. He needs more development of his traits, but the potential, it is there for this 6'6", 321-pounder with nearly 34-inch long arms. He measured in as one of the biggest tackle prospects in the class, and then he showed off his athleticism. His 1.73-second 10-yard split in his 40-yard dash, that was tied for the fourth best among all offensive linemen at this Combine. His vertical jump wasn't as good as others, but he rebounded on the broad jump by hitting 9 feet 7 inches. Max was a career right tackle at Arizona State. With performance like today, teams can bank on developing his traits with time.
IndyCar's Alex Palou makes winning look easy. The first race of the 2026 season was truly a battle for second place, much like many NTT IndyCar Series races in 2025. And that's because Alex Palou won 8 of the 17 races last year and controlled the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg unchallenged on March 1st. He won his second consecutive St. Petersburg race by 12 seconds, the largest winning margin in the 23-race history. There are questions about whether he can maintain a similar stranglehold on the sport in 2026, and the early results are promising for the 4-time IndyCar champ. Palou began the race in 4th place after Scott McLaughlin won the pole, and every driver in the team entered the race with a crucial tire decision to make. Cars were required to run with 2 sets of Firestone's red alternate tires, which are faster and deteriorate more quickly. Each car also had to run with 1 set of primary black tires that last longer and are slower. And Palou started with his alternate tires, while McLaughlin and Marcus Ericsson, who began the race in second and on the front row with McLaughlin, began with their primary tires. The strategy quickly jolted Palou's number 10 Chip Ganassi Racing Honda into the front of the pack. The Spaniard opened a lead that got above 14 seconds, helping him negate having to switch to the slower tires later. I was a little bit surprised by the fuel saving that the 3, McLaughlin and number 28 Ericsson, were doing at that moment, Palou said. This felt like it was just being more in our favor, especially knowing that Honda always gets a lot better mileage. I was just waiting. I didn't know if we were going to have enough tires at the end of to make it. But yeah, we did. We had a couple of clean laps, and that's what gave us the lead. Barry Wanzer, Palou's strategist, said CGR took a big chance with his tire management of the number 10 car, but it got Palou his 20th career IndyCar victory. We started on the stickier reds, Wanzer said, which we knew was a bit of a risk not to save those, the best tires for last, but it worked out. Again, I think Alex brought it up. The pace of the leaders at the time in the early part of the race certainly helped us go the distance. McLaughlin finished second and had a stronger weekend under rehired Team Penske strategist Tim Cindric. But if he had to do it all over again, McLaughlin would have started the race with alternate tires like Palou. Obviously, I think the correct decision today was probably to start on red tires, but we didn't know that going in, McLaughlin said. Sort of our gut feel and where we wanted to go out, we decided to go blacks. We didn't have the pace on them, and Palou managed to. Wagner said that he left it up to Palou to decide which tires he wanted to begin with the race with. Palou's decision turned out to be the right one, en route to a seamless victory. Palou's success can be attributed to his mistake-free driving. He didn't win this race due to a climatic pass or a crash in front of him. He won due to the team's early tire strategy and consistent pace afterward. Palou's driving doesn't lead to drama, but that's why he could win a fourth consecutive championship this year. He doesn't have an apparent weakness, while the rest of the field has blind spots that leave them behind his number 10 car. Since joining Chip Ganassi Racing in 2021, Palou has won 20 of the 85 races he's driven. Not only has he won 3 championships in a row, but no one else who has led the standing since Will Power on June 9th, 2024. Palou's historic performance in St. Petersburg proved he's just as far ahead, if not further ahead of the field, as he was in 2025. If March 1st was any indication of what's to come, Palou may steamroll his way to another Astor Challenge Cup.
All right, let's talk golf. Here's the PGA Tour. Colombian stunningly wins the Cognizant Classic. Shane Lowry found another way to lose a title at the Cognizant Classic in the Palm Beaches, and Nico Echevarria made true on his prediction of winning. Lowry had a 3-shot lead on the 16th tee on March 1st, but made consecutive double bogeys, the first time he's done that in his tour career, after woeful iron shots. His miscues handed the victory to Colombia's Echevarria before a stunned gallery at the PGA National. Lowry's 3-shot lead disappeared on the champion course after he double bogeyed 16, and then Echevarria, playing in the group ahead, made a 10-foot birdie putt at the difficult 17th. When Lowry's tee shot at number 17 landed well short in the water, leading to another double bogey, well, the tournament was over. Lowry settled for a second-place finish with Taylor Moore at 68 and Austin Smotherman at 69. He was looking for his first individual PGA Tour title since the 19 British Open, though he paired with Rory McIlroy to win a team event in New Orleans back in 24. It was Echevarria's third PGA Tour victory, this one coming in at a shocking fashion. He earned $1.728 million and then a return trip to the Masters. He has led the field in fewest bogeys, that was 4, and was there to pounce when Lowry lost his swing. It was an agonizing finish for Lowry. It was his 4th top 5 finish at Cognizant in the last 5 years. The heartbreaker coming in 2022 when a brief downpour on the 18th hole left Lowry settling for runner-up finish to Sepp Straka. Echevarria was 4 under after 10 holes in the final round to take the lead, only to lose it when Lowry then eagled the 10th hole. Echevarria then made 5 consecutive pars before the birdie at the 17th. That gave him the lead, and a par at the 18th protected his 2-shot lead. It was an eventful week for Echevarria, who closed on a house in nearby Palm Beach Gardens. He spent the week staying at fellow Colombian Camilo Villaga's house. "I've been through the lowest of lows, and this was the highest of highs," he said. He missed 4 cuts in 5 events on the West Coast. "I'll remember that shot on the 17th for the rest of my life. When I saw it drift right I lost some weight. I told some people I thought I was going to win this week. I had a feeling I was ready to play some good golf. Smotherman led after each of the first 3 rounds, but then he settled for second place. He was trying to win his first PGA Tour title in his 82nd start. It was a successful week, he said. Nikolai Højgaard of Denmark tried to match Joe Highsmith's feat of a year ago when Højgaard made the cut on the number and then shot a pair of 64s to claim his first PGA Tour title. Nikolai also made the cut on the number February 27th, and then he shot 66 and was 7 under through 11 holes to move within a shot of the lead. He missed a short birdie putt at 12 and then 3-putted on the 13th. However, and he finished 6th after a 65. Ricky Castillo, 68, he then finished 5th.
LA Kings fire their head coach. The hockey Los Angeles Kings fired head coach Jim Hiller, the team announced on March 1st, in an effort to salvage their playoff hopes in Anze Kopitar's final season. The Kings will look elsewhere for leadership. I want to thank Jim Hiller for his dedication, professionalism, and commitment he showed to our players and our team every day, General Manager Ken Holland said in his statement. He is a respected coach and person, and we appreciate the work he's done behind our bench. Holland named D.J. Smith interim head coach through the remainder of the season. Smith, who is in his second full as associate coach, was previously the head coach of the Ottawa Senators from 2019 to 2023. He was also assistant coach alongside Hiller in Toronto from 2015 to 2019. Kings player development coach Matt Green will serve as assistant coach under Smith. At this point in the season, we believe a change in leadership is necessary to give our group the best opportunity to reach its full potential and compete at the level we expect, Holland said. These decisions are never made lightly, but our responsibility is to position this team for success now and moving forward. The Kings were 24, 21, and 14, sat 4 points out of a playoff spot going into March 2nd. They lost their last 3 games going into the Olympic break and the first 2 games coming out of it, culminating in an 8-1 loss at home to the Edmonton Oilers that led fans at Crypto.com Arena to break out into fire Hiller chants. Hiller took over for Todd McClellan in February 2024 as an interim and led the Kings to a 21-12-1 finish that season. That culminated in a first-round playoff loss to the Oilers in 6 games. He was named permanent head coach that May. In his first full season, Hiller coached the Kings to 48 wins and 105 points, a franchise best. They met the Oilers again in the first round and held a 2-0 lead after the first 2 games, but Crypto.com fizzled out and lost the series in 6 games. It was the Kings' 4th consecutive first-round loss to the Oilers, who advanced to their 2nd straight Stanley Cup Finals. Yep.
And you're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on our Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Now our time is 1:27, and we're going to move over to our lifestyle section. We're going to start out with some streaming news and views. We take early bets on Bridgerton's Season 5, and it's a spoiler alert because it's going to contain some spoilers for the 4th season finale of that show called Bridgerton. 4 Bridgertons down and 4 to go. Netflix's Shonda Rhimes produced historical romance called Bridgerton has delivered 4 seasons of love, string orchestra covers of pop songs, and very frilly Regency-era dresses. Now, season 4, which unveiled its 2nd part on February 26th, features Benedict Bridgerton falling for the maid and the illegitimate child of nobility Sophie Beek over the course of the 8 very Cinderella-esque episodes. Now that he has found his true love, it's time for one of his remaining siblings to take the reins of the show for the new season. Netflix has renewed Bridgerton for a 5th and a 6th season, so we know we will get stories for at least 2 more of the fertile family's brood of 8. Julia Quinn's 8-book series on which the show is based, it focused on 1 sibling per novel. So who will be the star? And what rom-com obstacles will they have to fight through to make it to the altar? And who is taking over gossip monger Lady Whistledown now that Penelope has laid down her pen? So here's everything we know about this upcoming season. Bridgerton Season 5 can only be about Eloise or Francesca. Of the 4 Bridgerton children left unwed at the end of Season 4, only curmudgeonly Eloise and quiet Francesca are full-grown adults and thus ready to look for a match in the marriage mart. It's a toss-up for fans whose story will take center stage now that Benedict is stepping off. If the show goes in the book series order, well, then it would be Eloise's turn next. Her novel titled To Sir Philip with Love, that comes 5th in line, and with spinster Eloise falling for the titular ill-mannered Sir Philip. But the TV series has bucked the book order before, putting Colin and Penelope's story ahead of Benedict and Sophie's. So instead, the series could skip ahead to Francesca's novel. Francesca is most likely candidate to be Bridgerton's star. For Bridgerton fans who have never read the books, the fact that withdrawn piano talent Francesca met and married a man in the subplot in season 3, while brother Colin took the spotlight, might make it seem as if her story was done without getting a season of her own. But now we all know better. In the second part of season 4, Francesca finally has found a happy place in her new marriage to Lord John Sterling after worries about conception and sexual intimacy concerned her in the first half of the season. She particularly bonded with John's cousin, Michaela. But then, in a cruel twist of fate, John died, leaving Francesca a young widow unsure of what her life will hold. Now, this all happens in the book, except for one major change. It's John's cousin, Michael, not Michaela. When Michaela was introduced at the end of season 3, fans realized that the show would have its very first queer storyline, where Francesca got her season. Now, considering that John dies in season 4 and Francesca and Michaela's friendship is left in an uncertain state in the season finale, odds seem good that they could have their moment in season 5. This gender swap change has been blessed by author Quinn. And then, who is the next Lady Whistledown on Bridgerton? One of the big stories in season 4 was Penelope's dissatisfaction with her role as gossip columnist Lady Whistledown. That was an anonymous position she had held until she outed herself in season 3. Now, trying to gather gossip under her own byline, that didn't work as well. And the new mom also started to have ethical qualms about her work of ruining reputations of women and men in the ton. And with the Queen's permission, she officially laid down her pen at the end of season 4. But then, who wrote the new edition of Whistledown that came out in the season finale? Someone else has decided to peddle gossip, and the nobility is ready and willing to eat it all up. Fans have speculated it could be anyone from Eloise to a new lady-in-waiting, Alice Mondrick, who has a bone to pick with discriminatory upper classes after she and her husband surprisingly entered their ranks. And finally, they say, when will season 5 of Bridgerton, when will that premiere? Although Netflix has officially announced a 5th season, it has not given fans any specifics yet. The show has released a season every 2 years or so since it premiered back in 2020. So fans can probably expect to see more romance in late 2027 or perhaps early 2028.
The ceremony blends the somber and the celebratory. With global conflict erupting in the background, the Actors Awards maintained a jovial and celebratory atmosphere as Hollywood stars let loose at the peer-voted awards. They were formerly known as the Screen Actors Guild Awards. The ceremony had fun off-camera moments, such as one battle after another, Teyana Taylor holding court with her 5-year-old daughter Rue on the red carpet, and Demi Moore navigating a delicate fashion choice. Yet the Actors Awards also took on a somber note as Hollywood mourned the recent loss of one of their own, Catherine O'Hara, who was awarded a posthumous trophy that was accepted by an uncharacteristically forlorn Seth Rogen. So here are some moments that were captured. Rue Rose Schumpert charms as mom Teyana Taylor breaks out dance moves. The Actors Awards not only had a new name and a streaming home, but also a fanfare for the nominees walking the red carpet. As stars made their way to the pre-ceremony reception, they passed a seated area filled with social media influencers who hyped them up with cheers and shouted compliments. After spotting a gaggle of admirers, Taylor put on a show, dancing as she led her daughter, 5-year-old Rue, over to the spectators. Her younger daughter popped up in and out of Taylor's interviews with a microphone-toting set of social media creators. At one point, was wandering across the carpet to the press line, admiring Haley Khalil's elaborate nails. Fran Drescher and Sherry Lee bathed Sherry Lee Ralph bathing in the glow. Some of the actors, like Taylor, hemmed it up for the raucous influencer crowd. Marty Supreme actress Fran Drescher, dressed to the nines in a top hat and feathery pink style, posed for iPhone cameras as if it were the step and repeat. The Abbott Elementary leading ladies, Janelle James and Sherry Lee Ralph, also happily moseyed over to mingle with the gallery of influencers, while actress and singer Sophia Carson blew them air kisses. Demi Moore, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Emma Stone were more coy as they offered waves while spinning along the carpet. Emotional Rogan turns to Catherine O'Hara's friends. Rogan had the very sad honor of accepting O'Hara's posthumous award for Best Actress in a Comedy Series for The Studio. Unusually serious, Rogan gave a touching speech honoring O'Hara. Afterward, the studio honcho solemnly made a beeline to O'Hara's Best in Show co-star Parker Posey, and gave the actress a long embrace. And how did Moore sit with that massive Thule train? The consummate professional Demi Moore was not held back by her overflowing ensemble, a black Schiaparelli column gown with a massive black speckled white Thule tail affixed to the back. Once she had made her way along the red carpet, Moore worked across the ballroom, making a beeline to the Netflix boss, Ted Sarandos, for hugs and hellos. And after exchanging greetings, she faced the daunting task of fitting herself onto a seat. She gingerly lowered herself onto a chair that was turned sideways, allowing room for her poofy train. And Patrick Ball can't comprehend his Pitt Germany. No one had more fun at the Actors Awards than the Pitt star Patrick Ball, who was first spotted goofing around with co-star Isa Briones at the pre-reception. Briones cracked up while taking pictures of the dateless Ball posing with his arm around a stereo speaker on the stand. Inside the ballroom, everyone ran over to Ball's choice of a Tom Brown skirt, black socks, and black shoes. Ball did a little two-step dance for an amused Rufus Swell. Kerry Russell says it's official as Matthew Rhys looks on. The Diplomat star Kerry Russell pulled out a surprise win for Best Actress in a drama series and gave a St. David's Day shout-out to her Welsh partner, Matthew Rhys, from the podium, with Rhys proudly watching Russell excitedly had the trophy engraved at an after-party, hugging fellow winner Michelle Williams and chatting at the wooden counter. After the trophy was personalized, Russell turned to his partner and proclaimed with eyes closed, "It's official!" Michael B. Jordan followed by screams of admiration as he exited the party. Sinners was the Actors Awards big winner, with Michael B. Jordan shocking the Best Actor win, with a Best Actor win and the cast taking the top prize, Best Ensemble. Jordan was later arriving at the official after party, where he was besieged by fans and well-wishers. He stood with a big grin at a private table with both awards parked in front of him.
And now we're still talking about the awards. The awards gave us moments to remember. The most unpredictable Oscar race in years is finally coming into focus. At those actor awards on Sunday, March 1st, Jessie Buckley from Hamnet, Amy Madigan from Weapons, and Sean Penn from One Battle After Another solidified their frontrunner status in their respective categories, while a surprise win from Michael B. Jordan offered a welcome shakeup to the ultra-competitive lineup for Best Actor. So here are some of the biggest moments from the 26 Actor Awards, which had streamed already on Netflix. First one is Harrison Ford jokes it's weird to win a Lifetime Achievement Award at age 83. Ford, who's 83, has long been known for his ornery public persona, but after a comically rambling introduction by his friend Woody Harrelson of the Star Wars icon, was visibly overwhelmed as he walked to the stage to accept the Actor Awards Lifetime Achievement Award. "I feel incredibly grateful for this kind of attention," Ford said at the podium, delivering a speech that was both wry and heartfelt. "But to be clear, I'm also quite humbled. I'm in a room of actors, many of whom here are because they are nominated to receive a prize for their amazing work, while I'm here to receive a prize for just being alive. It's a little weird to be getting a Lifetime Achievement Award at half the point of my career," he deadpanned. "It's a little early, isn't it? I'm still a working actor." And the next moment they have is Michael J. Fox appears in an I Am Actor segment. Fox, who guest starred in Season 3 of Shrinking this year, appeared during the opening segment of the Actor Awards as stars including Teyana Taylor, Kristen Wiig, Delroy Lindo, and Kate Hudson recounted their own acting origin stories. "Before I left school and moved from Canada to LA, a teacher of mine told me, 'Fox, you're "You're not going to be cute forever." And Fox said, "So I said, maybe just long enough, sir." After a few years of dumpster diving, Fox landed a starring role in that sitcom called Family Ties, where he received the biggest gift of his life, his wife, Tracy Pollan, who co-stars in the series. And she gave me 4 gifts: Schuler, Aquina, Esme, and Sam. That's his children. Sometimes I like to remind them, if it wasn't for acting, you wouldn't even be here. Next moment is Seth Rogen honors genius O'Hara after posthumous win. Stars such as Sarah Paulson, Rose Byrne, and Jenna Ortega were brought to tears by the posthumous win for Catherine O'Hara, who earned the prize for Best Actress in a comedy series called The Studio. The actress, who died January 30th of a pulmonary embolism, was memorialized on stage by her studio co-star Seth Rogen, who spoke at length about her graciousness and generosity. She really showed that you can be a genius and be kind, and one of those things does not have to come at the expense of the other, he said. "Tell the people as they are laughing." That's Catherine O'Hara, and we were lucky that we got to live in a world where she so generally shared her talents with us, Rogen said. The next moment is Teyana Taylor with her daughter Rue. They win for the cutest duo on the red carpet. Teyana Taylor missed out on the award for Best Supporting Actress, but she did win the red carpet. Well, she and her 5-year-old daughter, Rue Rose Schumpert. As Taylor was posing on the carpet for the cameras, Rue made sure Mom was on point by fixing her train on her dress. Later, she then joined her mother in delivering some adorable poses and some sass on the red carpet that the two won over the crowd by exchanging hugs and kisses. Rue did her job well as one of Taylor's co-stylists, alongside her big sister Junie, who's 10. The one battle after another star was one of the best dressed at the show. She rocked a strapless silver and gray trompe l'oeil dress featuring a corset of sorts. Then the last moment they have is Amy Madigan compares Actor Award statue to a Barbie and Ken. Madigan delivered far and away the most charming speech of the night as she picked up the win for Best Supporting Actress as witchy Aunt Gladys in the horror mystery called Weapons. She began by trotting to the podium with her arms outstretched, recreating the movie's memorable opening sequence. "It's such an honor to be here. I've been doing this for a long-ass time," she said, "and I've never been nominated by the SAG committee," said Madigan, and she's 75. Best known for the classic 1980s films like Field of Dreams, Uncle Buck, and Twice in a Lifetime. She thanked her fellow actors before getting momentarily distracted by the striking physique of Actor Award statue. "Let's see, what does he have here?" Madigan said, examining the statuette. "It's like when you were little and you had Barbie, and then you had Ken, and you whipped off those drawers and you said, 'Ken has nothing.' I never quite understood that," she said. "Anyway, I'm digressing. I apologize."
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 1:42. And on to an article about music. Bruno Mars returns in a romantic mood. Bruno Mars has spent so much time collaborating with other artists, it will take a minute to remember his last solo hit. That is, of course, excluding the first single from his new album, The Romantic, the jaunty soul pop throwback, I Just Might, which made its debut at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in January. But before that, our appetite for Mars' musical bars could only be fulfilled with his assorted pairings. There was the 70s influenced Silk Sonic project with Anderson .Paak, driven by their 2022 Record and Song of the Year Grammy winner Leave the Door Open. A visceral musical marriage with Lady Gaga, another Grammy winner in 2025 for pop duo/group performance, Die with a Smile. And most recently, his caffeinated bop with Blackpink's Rosé, 3 Grammy nominations in this year for their APT. Mars risks it all, and Cha 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 opens smooth album. The Romantic marks Mars' first solo release since 2016's triple platinum 24K Magic. With 9 songs that clock in at slightly more than 30 minutes, the new release is efficient, and for that in itself we thank him. Impeccably produced, often lyrically slight, but brimming with Mars' innate ability with melody. Considering the bouncy groove of I Just Might, it's a bit surprising that the opening 2 tracks tiptoe in with mariachi as the backdrop to Mars pining on a new single, Risk It All, and swirling strings that evoke a 70s era TV theme coding cha-cha-cha. The airy fingers of producer Ernst Emil, who worked with Mars on Silk Sonic's material, are prevalent throughout their album, both as Mars' de facto co-writer on every song and the music's sheen. Influences are gleaned from the vintage sounds of the Chi-Lites, the pleading ballad Why You Wanna Fight, Santana, the percussive thrust of Something Serious, and the founding fathers of Philly soul, Gamble and Huff, God Was Showing Off. Mars, who's 40 years old, shimmers when he can wrap his voice around a Loverboy moment. But when he unfurls such lyrics as The fire don't burn like it used to, girl, and Nothing Left, and Girl, oh, you're in trouble tonight. Little mama, you turn me on, in Cha-Cha-Cha, it's time to commence eye rolling. Mars' new album crowns him the easy listening king. Still, much of the romantic is irresistible, owing to Mars' keen sense of soul and ability to knit classic sounds into his music with a coolness that keeps it current. The standout track, God Was Showing Off, christens Mars as the easy listening king of contemporary music. He's a smooth talker, as comfortable in a leisure suit as he is sporting a Western-style hat, a singer who can sell drama while taking the fall. The closing Dance With Me spotlights Mars at his old school best, with a circular guitar melody evoking images of a late-night dance floor, cleared except for the couple swaying in their own world. The production is cinematic, and Mars is again imploring his girl to fall in love again under twinkling stars to guide their romance. But this time, his begging sounds like more than an empty come on.
And now here's a movie preview for you. Scream 7, that's the movie, has lost its voice along with its frenetic purpose. One character in the latest Scream movie dares to call Neve Campbell's iconic final girl Sidney Prescott past her prime. No, that would better describe this slasher series, which is a stale, desiccated corpse of what it used to be. Now, what's even more disappointing is this 7th installment. It goes back to the original horror film's roots. Screenwriter Kevin Williamson made a fantastic team with director Wes Craven back in '96, and he now helms Scream 7 himself. But even Williamson doing both jobs and including some fleetingly intriguing AI/deepfake commentary, it can't lift a woeful retread or resuscitate a flagging franchise. Now, Scream 7, it catches up with Sidney in Pine Grove, Indiana, where the survivor of California's infamous Woodsboro murders had tried to build a new home and a family, but is reminded constantly of her bloody backstory. With the help of her police chief husband, Mark, she has tried not to pass the trauma down to her 17-year-old daughter, Tatum, though all that has accomplished is building a wall between them. Now, Sidney gets a call at her coffee shop from her old pal Ghostface, and she thinks it's just another kook. Soon she realizes that the masked villain is back and has followed her to the Midwest, targeting Tatum and hinting that this iteration of the killer's return might involve a former foe from her past. Now, original franchise star Courtney Cox returns as tabloid reporter / Sidney's best frenemy, Gale Weathers, and her twin siblings, Mindy and Chad, are back playing Gale's interns and give the movie some scene-stealing life. Though May is a talented addition to the franchise, Tatum's friend group of possible suspects / easy victims, including McKenna Grace and Celeste O'Connor, and maybe the dullest crew of new kids in a Scream movie. There are some recognizable franchise faces as well. No spoilers here, but Matthew Lillard, who played OG killer Stu Mockcher, does find a way to appear in number 7, and his delightfully demented presence lends the kind of needed electricity that no one else in this thing can muster. Now, Scream has always been a hit-and-miss franchise, but it does seem a bit cursed at this point. After the 2022's 5th movie rebooted the series, Campbell turned down a role in Scream 6 because of a pay dispute. The fact that Sidney wasn't involved in Ghostface crashing New York City is an awkward subplot in the latest film. Now, the bigger losses are Melissa Barrera, a standout from the past 2 outings, fired from Scream 7 because of because of pro-Palestinian social media posts, and then Jenna Ortega, who quit the part over Barrera's exit. Now, the franchise was put squarely on their shoulders, and it being hotshot back to Campbell for Scream 7 feels like desperation. Yes, the kills are still gory, but it's just not any fun anymore. The joyous gallows humor and the horror movie commentary of old are gone, and some inspired working in of new technology, it just falls apart. Even the violent cold opening, it's a boring fumble here. The franchise needs to be blown up again, or just repeatedly stabbed into submission, or just given to Chad and Mindy to run wild, because right now, even Ghostface wouldn't recognize it.
Well, baby pygmy hippo named Jellybean is living the sweet life in Arizona. Move over, move dang. America has a new baby pygmy hippo to obsess over. Meet Jellybean, the newest breakout star at the Wildlife Zoo in Litchfield Park, Arizona, about 20 miles outside of Phoenix, as first reported by the Arizona Republic, part of the USA Today network. Born in late January, Jellybean made his official debut on February 10th, when the zoo announced her arrival on social media. The birth was described as rare and important, marking a major milestone in the zoo's commitment to the conservation and the care of threatened species. The zoo turned to the public for help renaming the baby hippo, giving fans until February 22nd to vote on a candy-themed name, a nod to Jellybean's parents, Lollipop and Tootsie Roll. The final contenders were Cadbury, Twixie, Jellybean, and Taffy, and the zoo said it received thousands of votes from fans eager to name the baby hippo. The big reveal came on February 23rd when the zoo announced the winning name on social media. With the weather warming up, she'll be out on an exhibit hanging out with Mom, Wildlife World Zoo President Christy Hayden said in a video announcing the result. An endangered species native to West Africa, pygmy hippos typically live in forests and nearby swamps. They are rarely seen by humans and are extremely difficult to study in the wild, according to the zoo. This makes the arrival of this calf especially meaningful for conservation awareness and education efforts led by World Wildlife Zoo Aquarium and Safari Park.
And I found one more short sports article we can throw in right now,
ahead.
Alan, if you like.
Go ahead.
From our sports section, we have Gray displays unrivaled dominance in the MVP season. Four-time WNBA champ and Las Vegas Aces guard Chelsea Gray has won unrivaled MVP award. Gray, who completed her second season with the 3-on-3 league on February 28th, earned MVP honors after receiving the most combined votes from the unrivaled players, coaches, and fans, plus national sports writers and broadcasters. During her second year in Unrivaled, Gray averaged career highs in points, that was 24.2 per game, rebounds, she had 5.6, and assists, she had 6.1. She also led Unrivaled in total points, 339, assists, that was 85. She made three-pointers, that was 49, and assists per game was 6.1. In 14 games with Rose BC, the veteran guard broke her league single-season assist record with 85, and then recorded 9 games with 20 or more points and 10 games with 5 or more assists. On February 22nd, Gray tied Unrivaled's record for three-pointers made in game with 10. Gray's dominance also continued in Unrivaled's one-on-one tournament, where she won the tournament and then took home a $200,000 cash prize. Gray also added another team first, all Unrivaled selection to her resume, her second with the league. Her latest honors to add a lengthy list of Unrivaled accolades, which includes a finals MVP trophy back in 2025, as well as an Unrivaled championship. And there's a beautiful picture of her holding a check and clapping and looking very happy, hugging her son. And it reads, Chelsea Gray, number 12 of the Rose, receives the prize from Unrivaled Basketball Commissioner Mickey Lawler after winning the Unrivaled 2026 one-on-one in a tourney on February 14th in Medley, Florida.
And here's the Lifeline column. Style star Demi Moore. Demi Moore made a chic appearance with her dog Pilaf during Gucci's Milan Fashion Week show. The actress attended the show, which marked creative director Demi's first runway looks for the luxury Italian brand, and brought Matrix and styled glamour in all-black Gucci leather jacket and pants paired with a wet look hair and her celebrity micro long-haired Chihuahua, which is a very, very small dog. It's your birthday. Who's celebrating today? Singer Jennifer Warnes turned 79, guitarist Terrence Stewie White of Thin Lizzy and Pink Floyd is 78. Historian author Ron Chernow is 77. Actor screenwriter Tim Kazurinsky, 76. Singer Robin Hitchcock, 73. Actor Robert Gossett, 72. Host Ira Glass is 67. Rapper Tone Locke is 60. Chef TV host Tyler Florence is 55. Actor David Faustino is 52. Chef TV host Buddy Valastro is 49. Actor Jessica Biel of Timberlake is 44. And Indian actor singer Shraddha Kapoor is 39. And singer social personality Jake, that's spelled Jvke, is 25. The horoscopes. Aries, trying to force life to follow an orderly pattern. Today's lunar eclipse in Virgo asks you to lighten up. Taurus, trying to do love by the book. Today exposes that methodology isn't working. Gemini, you think you know how a family interaction will go down, but you have no idea. The Virgo lunar eclipse proves revelatory. Cancer, no amount of over-explaining or dissecting this issue will get your point across. Today proves this decisively. Leo, maintaining a vice grip on money matters. A financial upset forces you to rethink your values. Virgo, who do you think you are? No? Really? Today's lunar eclipse falls in your sign, prompting an identity crisis. Libra, at a certain point you have to start believing in yourself. Today's events function as a catalyst and an invitation. Scorpio, has staying on course compromised your vision? Today's Virgo lunar eclipse reveals where you've lost the plot. Sagittarius, business success not all it's cracked up to be? The Virgo lunar eclipse put this truth into sharp relief. Capricorn, don't have the answers? That's okay. The Virgo lunar eclipse rewards curiosity. Dance with the unknown. Aquarius, fear keeping you paralyzed? Today is a wake-up call, an invitation to take a trust fall. And Pisces, are your relationships helping you thrive or hindering your happiness? Today's Virgo lunar eclipse severs an unhealthy attachment. If you missed it, the lunar eclipse was around 6:30 this morning. Well, you've been listening to Readers of USA Today for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2026. We read USA Today weekday at noon. For more information, call 82155. Your readers today have been
Jody
and Alan Blackburn.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print